My friend is here. It's the last Tuesday of the month, and every last Tuesday of the month, Bill Lockwood is here. My friend, he's a good man and one of the smartest white men on this side of heaven. And he's not afraid. Bill Lockwood is a radio host, teacher. He's also the pastor of the Our Park Church of Christ and the author of the book Ezekiel, the Watchman of Israel. And I really look forward to having Bill here because he's so smart. And a lot of people love hearing from him. And I'm going to get to your calls after I finish with Bill, so be patient. Amazing. Bill, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jesse Lee. How are you today?
All is well. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful.
I'm glad. My biblical question I have a brand new biblical question this week.
Okay.
And so I'd like to get to you right away about that in case we forget.
Okay.
And my biblical question, get ready, Bill.
Okay, here, I'm putting my seatbelt on.
This is a doozy.
Okay.
Did God create sex? Did God create sex?
Are you meaning sexual beings?
Did God create sex? S-E-X.
Yeah, well, I understood the word. Well, the Bible teaches he created man, male and female, and he created them that way. And they are, of course, sexual beings from the creation of God. So, yes, he created man and women and women, as well as the animal kingdom. He created them sexual beings.
So did he create sex? You know what sex is?
Oh, boy. Well, I believe that man has that instinct. I mean, that's how God created us. So I guess in that sense, yes.
So you're saying yes, God created sex.
Well, I would just say that he created man as a sexual being and woman as a sexual being, as well as the male and female created them all that way. And they have that instinct. That's correct.
And so you're saying, yes, God created sex.
Well, I don't know if I'd put it that way.
But I heard someone say that over the weekend. I was at somewhere, and someone said it, and then I was shocked. And then I asked the congregation on Sunday morning, and I was surprised at the number of people who raised their hand to say, yes, God created sex. And you're saying, yes, he created sex. And you know what sex is, right?
Yeah. You know what? I would just say that he created man as a sexual being and woman as a sexual being. But as far as the act, no, God didn't create that. That's the instinct that man has. And that's how procreation, of course, occurs. And that's the same with the animal kingdom.
And so now you're saying, no, he did not create sex.
Well, it depends upon what you mean by that. If you mean the act
you sound
of
like
sex,
Bill Clinton. All depends on what you mean by sex.
Well, it depends upon what you mean. If you mean by this act of sexual activity, no, he didn't create that, but he created man with the instinct for that.
Okay. I appreciate that, Bill. I'll put my little 2 cents in on Friday.
I don't know. I don't know if that'll help your congregation or not. But
That's amazing. And so the last time you were here on the show, we discussed that woman, Cortez, out of New York.
Yes, we did.
So-called congresswoman. And she's a socialist and a so-called environmentalist. Are you able to explain to us what is the new Green Deal? I don't quite understand that.
Well, the new Green Deal that she's proposing, of course, all of these Green Deals are nothing but the lever by which socialism is going to operate. Always in history, in order to excuse or to give in order to enable a totalitarian government, there has always to be a crisis. And so they're always in a crisis mode, that things are so bad and things are so ugly that we have to do something And it doesn't mean at a local government level, not at a local level at all. It is a federal level and an international level. So the United Nations has been pushing the Green Deal for a long time, in which they basically say that they want to control all the actions, all the everything that you do, everything that you wear, everything that you eat, all the decisions you make should be funneled through their idea of environmental laws. And that's exactly what she means by this. It is just the big stick of socialism. And that's all that the Green Deal is. It's to enable them to create a top-down control government from Washington, D.C., or from Brussels or wherever, the United Nations, New York City.
Amazing. And so is it true that the Green Deal want to get rid of airplanes and trains and old buildings and all that too?
Well, she said it does. That's what she said.
What's wrong with
you know,
her?
well, and the sad thing is that so many Democrats, I think something like 38 Democrats have signed on to assist her in and to co-sponsor her bills. And this particular bill, for example, 38 co-sponsors. That being the case, it's not simply her, it's the Democrat Party who are bound and determined to bring us into a socialistic totalitarian government. And they think that the environment is the big stick to hit America over the head with, that we have to have it to excuse big government. So that's what she wants to do. Yeah.
How that's not normal thinking. How do people mind become that way?
You know what? That's a good question. And I believe the answer is simply repudiation of the truth. When people blind their eyes to the truth, then they are susceptible to many things. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what Paul teaches in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. He tells us very plainly, he says, the mystery of lawlessness does already work. And then that's verse 7, and then he goes on and tells us later on in that chapter, in verses 9, 10, and 11, that God sends them a delusion that they should believe a lie because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. If people don't love the truth and desire nothing but the truth, and they actually accept something else, then their minds are exposed to any kind of lie that comes along, and God will assist them in that and sets the stage for it. And then they begin calling good evil and evil good, as Isaiah said. That's precisely what happens. They just reject the truth.
I can now understand why they destroyed the family first, especially the black community, and now the white community. And then they took the kids and destroyed their minds in the public school system and then in the universities. Now I see why they have done that, because they had this other agenda, and that is to turn America into a socialist society. And if they can corrupt the kids, the young people, get them to believe this, it's easy to get that done.
You know, John Dewey, the father of modern education, was a progressive back at the turn of the last century. And John Dewey was a progressive, means a socialist. And he stated very plainly that his intention was to dumb down America in the public schools. He did not like the fact that they were able to read and write at a young age and do arithmetic, and were able to read the classics, and were able to, men like John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, was a foreign minister. In his teenage years, he had such a classic education. John Dewey didn't like any of that, and he purposely stated, and he called primary education fetish. He said, look, he says, we need to dumb down education. That was not his words, but that's basically what he meant. Get away from this rigorous learning at a young age. And then he says, but we're going to have to do it gradually, because there will be a violent reaction if we do. And he says what we need to have is a collective society where there's collective ownership of everything. So his goal, in order to bring us to a collective society, socialism, is to dumb down America so that they would not be able to be educated and learn and read the materials they need to read. And we're just about there, really.
Yeah, it's amazing. Where is John Dewey now?
Well, he's in he's in Hades.
I rest my case. Did you go to public school or private?
I went to public school.
And how did you avoid the brainwashing?
Well, you know what? I had some rigorous training at home, Jesse. My mother, my grandmother, And my mother's family they were all very conservative, and they wanted me to read. They had me reading materials on the conservative side of the issue, because you get everything liberal from the mainstream media and from the public schools. So the other side, they had me reading the other side when I was a youngster, even before teenage years, and I was apprised of the issues. So also that, and plus, when you root your feet in the Bible, then you cannot help but be conservative.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my mother and my grandmother had me doing. So I was studying a pretty rigorous training with that material through my young years.
I want to play a quick soundbite. I want you to hear. This is from Instagram, and get your response on it. This woman Cortez is saying we shouldn't have babies because of climate change or something like that. I want you to hear this.
Our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
Wow. How would you like to be married to that one? What do you say? What do you say to that, Bill?
Like I have illustrated before, she's just a preacher, and she's a preacher of unrighteous lies. But let's just say I'm a preacher, she's a preacher, we all preach our messages. Hers is a failing message. How do I know? Because she is going to require government force in order to enforce the laws that she wants to perpetrate upon all of us. That's the very opposite of what I want to do. I'm simply wanting to preach the gospel and persuade the hearts of men. She's not able to persuade the hearts of people, so they're going to use government power to enforce what they want to preach. That's the difference. That's why their message, atheism, environmentalism, paganism, Islam, are failing messages because they have to require government force to actually crack down and make it happen. I don't.
Yeah.
And the gospel of Christ does not. I simply preach and let people have a free market idea and accept it or reject it. But they know there's a failing message.
She sounds like a little girl who really don't know what she's talking about, like she's talking to little kids or something.
You know what? The sad thing is she's an elected representative. She's not just a school kid.
Yeah.
Even though she sounds like it, she's backed by many New Yorkers. It's hard to believe.
Can we ship her back to her country?
I don't know. Oh,
maybe,
boy, I tell you what.
Maybe we could accidentally put her on the bus when we were shipping the illegal aliens back and ship her back too.
You know, it would be better just to have people educated enough that they would recognize her elementary and sophomoric ideas as they truly are, and get her out of Congress and vote her out. That would be best.
I was wondering, I know that this woman is trying to use the UN climate change talking points. In Europe, do the Europeans believe in climate change? Do you know?
The people, you mean?
Yeah,
the
in
people
Europe.
in Europe. Well, I'm sure there are many of them that do believe in it. You know, they've had a campaign, that is the climate changers, those who are supporting green deals. They've had a rigorous campaign ever since I was in school. And they have put it into all the way down to kindergarten. When I had kids in kindergarten, they had all about the green deals in kindergarten. Matter of fact, Dianne Feinstein recently had in her office school children wanting her to push the Green Deal. What's happening? We're brainwashing these children at a very young age. We're getting them all worked up over adult issues when they're just first and second and third grade. It's absolutely a shame.
Why do you think the parents, I saw that, why do you think parents allow their children to be brainwashed like that at such an early age?
I think a lot of parents are lazy, Jesse, honestly. I think they're lazy. They turn the kids over to the school system. They want to do what they want to do. They themselves grew up in where they were not really educated well. And so now they're not educating their own children. That, you know, you have to do a lot of teaching to overcome some of these falsehoods that are being perpetrated upon our children.
Yeah. Bill, do you know what the red flag laws are? Do you know what they are?
Yes. Yeah, the red flag laws are the at risk. They call it red flag. That is those who are they deem to be at risk, and they are already starting in about 12 or 13 states to remove the firearms of people they deem to be at risk for certain things such as violent acts or even suicide or threats. And so they will have a judge, either a judge. Usually they'll take it to a judge. Sometimes it will be the sheriff's office. Sometimes it will be the friends and family members, such as in Maryland. If you're in Maryland or 2 or 3 other states, there might be individuals who will go to a judge and say, I believe that my dad, Bill Lockwood, is at risk, or it's a snitch system is what it is. And so they're going to judges, and the judges will issue an order to remove the firearms of that individual that society or those individuals around them deemed a risk.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the chaos and the mess that would create in families? Because it's going to be a real mess.
We're rewarding a snitch system. You can feel that coming. That family members who are at odds with one another, turning one another in for being at risk. But here's something else might think about, and that is we do have a lot of violence in our society. And in the school shootings, this is, of course, once again, this is the leg they stand on, and that is we have so much violence in school shootings, so we need to do something. Well, the problems with the school shootings involve a lot of things. Number one, the home, the lack of a home and lack of a father in the home, as you have preached all your life. We just don't have fathers in the home guiding children to teach them how to behave when people disagree with you.
Yes.
So we don't have that, and to handle their emotions, number one. Number two, we have programs such as JDAI, which is Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative, which basically takes all the juvenile justice system and tells us that there are too many people of color in the juvenile detention system. So in Broward County, Florida, the sheriff down there refused to arrest the young man there. His name was, I think, Cruz was his name, and shot in Parkland, Florida, all those kids. Wounded 17 others. He had already been one who had been red flagged to the sheriff's office a number of times for making threats and with his guns and so forth, but he refused to arrest him because the pressure from JDAI, the program, is we have too many kids of color, too many kids of minority in a juvenile system, so stop arresting the kids and keep them on the street. So he did not arrest him.
Amazing.
He didn't put him in juvenile detention. He didn't put him away at all. So finally, he goes and shoots up the school. Now we have laws that are red flag laws for the entire community to look in and spy on one another and tell the sheriff's office and or the judge, here's someone who's misbehaving. So we have a lot of factors that are playing into it, but we are always going about it the wrong way and trying to remedy the situation. But the real remedy is turning to God. We've taken God out of the schools. We've replaced God with atheism and humanism and evolutionism. We have taken the man out of the home, the father out of the home. We replaced it with government care. We're taking kids out of juvenile detention facilities and keeping them on the streets. And now what? Well, we have chaos.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Bill, correct me where I'm wrong. I noticed that when I was growing up and they had fathers around and families, you didn't see these type of violence and kids out of control and a lack of respect and shooting one another and all that. And I noticed that every time you remove the man, it seems as though all hell comes in. For example, in the public schools, when I was growing up, they had male principals and vice principals, and there were male teachers around as well as female teachers. And even in government, when the men controlled the government or the workplace, you didn't have all this violence and stuff going on. And now they're replaced them with female principals and vice principals and teachers in the schools and in the workplace. All hell seems to be breaking loose. And it seems as though when you take the man out and replace it with the woman, that's when evil comes in and destroys. Am I seeing this wrong?
No, I don't think you're seeing it wrong. And I'll tell you another thing you can add to that, and that is that so many young children, young men particularly, even in young boys in elementary schools, have so many problems because they have no positive male role
Yeah.
model in their life. So now they have a Big Brothers program where they're trying to get people on a volunteer basis to come in and assist a young man or a young boy and give him a father figure in his life.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening here? We know that what the problem is. We just refuse really to confess it out loud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bill, we're almost out of time. Tell the folks how to listen to your radio show, read your podcast, and get involved in what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Jesse. You know what? It's the radio show and the website itself. Both of them are called American Liberty with Bill Lockwood, and the website is .com. American Liberty with Bill Lockwood, and the radio show is out of Wichita Falls. It's News Talk 1290 AM, and it airs on Saturdays at 11 a.m. in the morning.
Amazing.
It's also in Lubbock. It's also in Lubbock in Abilene also on Sunday afternoons at 5 o'clock. So that'd be Sunday afternoon at Lubbock at KFYO 790, and then in Abilene on 1440 a.m.
I hear from so many people who are now listening to your show, and they love it. They look
Well,
forward
thank
to
you for
hearing.
that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, we try to have be on the cutting edge and try to look at things with the biblical viewpoint on what's happening in our society, and as you do, and I appreciate your show for that.
Absolutely, Bill. I appreciate you. So you believe God created sex?
Yeah.
Let your wife know that when you get home.
Okay. Oh boy. Oh, she's probably listening right now.
Tell her I said hello and hello to the family for me. Your mother doing well?
She is. You know what? She's in a facility right now. 24/7. So, so her memory's going, and it's kind of sad. But she's always been just been a great Christian woman, and but now I bring her to services, and she sleeps during services a little bit, and I just brings me a little bit of sadness,
Yeah.
At any rate,
My
that's what life is, though.
My father went through that too.
Yeah.
Before he expired, we had to put him in a facility because he just lost his mind, and they started to get. That's that Alzheimer's thing, right?
Well, she hasn't been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but she's in a wheelchair, and but I guess it's just dementia of some.
Oh,
but it comes and goes. So she's not always that way, but it's more progressive than it used to be. So
Does she still remember you, who you are?
yes, oh yeah, she remembers me. She knows me, and she knows the family members. And I always, I have pictures in the room, and I try to talk about the family members and keep that in front of her mind a little bit as best I can, But that's the way it happens, and that's what life is. And it's sad though.
Yeah. When my father developed Alzheimer's, I would go back and see him, and I would say, "Hey, Dad, you know who I am?" He was like, "Yeah, I think you my son that live way out there somewhere."
Yeah,
It's amazing. Bill, your family, you and your family in our prayers. I wish you well.
Thank you so much, Jesse Lee, and same to you.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much, Bill.
Bye.
You too, buddy.